Good afternoon, Mr. Mikus. If you would, could you please give your full name and go right ahead into your testimony, please?
My name is Leslie Minkus, and as a veteran poll watcher and observer of the 2016, 2018, and 2020 elections, I'm here to testify to what I encountered in the 2020 election as voting irregularities, inequities, lack of transparency, and contested voter results. I'm also here as a veteran, a military veteran, and wish to extend my sincere appreciation to all of our military men and women that serve to keep the United States of America a free constitutional republic, a nation of constitutional laws, checks and balances. And I salute our flag. And to all of our military branches, I say, Semper Fi, always faithful. My professional bio includes 50-plus years in corporate life as Vice President of Finance, CFO, Legal Liaison Officer for worldwide companies and joint venture operations, where I traveled to 28 countries over 13 years, responsible for financial operations, mergers and acquisitions, audits that were both general audits and forensic audits, banking, tax, and legal relationships with barristers, solicitors, and attorneys internationally. Following is my declaration, as well as a copy of my poll observer authorization form, which I brought with me to show you that I was legally responsible as a poll worker, that I was required to present to poll inspectors at each of the poll locations where I was assigned to observe. Also, I have a picture of the Barr Elementary School gymnasium that was a polling location where I served on November the 3rd. The picture is to demonstrate the enormous size of the facility for only one Republican poll observer to watch the voting activity from an assigned seat at the entrance of the gym and not be able to see any of the ballots or the actual processing that was located at the opposite end of the gym. Everybody knows what a school gym looks like, but I thought I'd bring a picture just to make certain that you got it. I served as an official legal observer for the 2020 general election at two different locations. On October 27th, October 29th, I was at the United Methodist Church in Sun Lakes, Arizona. On November 3rd, from 5:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the Barr Elementary School in Phoenix, and then from 4 o'clock to 7:15 at the Sun Lakes Methodist Church in Sun Lakes, Arizona. While serving as an observer, I personally witnessed the following. Observers were not allowed to talk with poll workers or voters, which was part of the manual that the Secretary of State had put out, which was clear, nor was I able to freely walk around the poll location to observe any of the voting activities, which was contrary to what was in the Secretary of State's manual, indicating that we should be allowed to have access to all areas of the voting to be able to observe them. At the Sun Lakes location, I was seated about 25 feet away from the tabulating machine and the ballot box, the ballot drop box, and I had to ask the poll inspector and had to be accompanied by a poll worker if I wanted to walk around to observe anything anywhere in the polling locations. In the Barr Elementary School, I was seated about 80 feet from the two tabulator machines and the ballot drop box, and I had to ask the poll inspector, who was at the opposite end of the gymnasium, and I only saw her maybe twice during the time I was there from 5:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if I wanted to walk around and I had to be accompanied by a poll worker to observe anything anywhere in the poll location. It appeared to me that almost every ballot, from what I was able to see, that was processed through the tabulator computer resulted in a green light switch being activated, and either the poll worker or the voter had to depress that green light switch for their ballot to process through the tabulator. Okay, so I also was on October 16th, I was also an observer that I went to the Maricopa County Election Center. That was the week after the early voting had started. And I asked to observe the ballot opening. I was asked to observe the ballot opening, sorting, and processing in the center. A point regarding lack of transparency at this facility includes observers were told how the ballot receiving process was supposed to function, but was not shown or allowed to see the mail receiving room operations. The methods used to support the supporting of the various types of ballots, how the various types of ballots were opened and distributed to processors, what the processors did with the various types of ballots, and the security of knowing that all valid ballots reached a tabulating room so that each legal vote was actually counted. While I was an observer there at the facility, where the ballots were received, validated, processed, in the large room that was there that I was seated in, I was about 25 feet away from the closest table where there was supposed to be a Republican and a Democrat sitting at the table, but who knew? I mean, nobody knew who was actually at the table because you couldn't see any credentials for anybody there. The room was large enough to hold 110 ballot processors, and the closest one that I was near was 25 feet away, so I wasn't able to really see much of anything. I was not allowed to talk to or ask any questions of anyone other than the assistant director of the facility, which I saw maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the entire day that I was there from 9 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. There was a young Asian man in the facility talking with the assistant manager at the same time that I was out in the corridor that I briefly met and asked him what his role was, and he replied that he was a computer programmer at the facility. Well, I didn't think much about it until afterwards when I heard the news and I heard about the allegations that China was heavily involved with the ballot tabulating company and the software. I started to think about, gee, that's really unusual that we had an Asian gentleman that was there that was in the programming process. So I just thought it was kind of unusual, and I mentioned it in my affidavit that I had put in. Okay, finally, following the election, I was asked to come to the Arizona GOP office in order to be able to investigate some of the complaints that were coming in from voters. And I spoke with around 35 Republican voters that complained about their ballot issues of processing through the tabulating machine that they personally experienced on Election Day. Then they signed declarations under penalty of perjury that I actually went out, saw them, and talked to them, and asked them if they would be willing to sign those affidavits, that they had to push the green button on the tabulation machine since the poll worker told them to do so, but didn't tell them that the machine rejected their ballot and what options they had to correct their ballots by having the ballot spoiled and redoing it again. So they just thought that pushing the green button was required to process their ballot through the tabulation machine, a sign of voting irregularity and voter inequity. Thank you. That concludes my testimony today.